Hello, Chirag.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How are you
How's
doing
everyone?
today? So this is Kai, I
Wow.
believe. Thibault's also joining. Thank you so much for being here today. I think we're live already, so we just have, I believe, 2 speakers left, Kweku and Nazifa. So thank you so much for joining us today. I think I'm going to get started, and then people can probably start joining in as we go along. I think Thibault's now with us. That's fantastic. Great. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the first in Windsor Prep's Alternative Careers webinar series. I'm Dr. Saba Debar, founder and CEO of Windsor Prep. Windsor Prep Careers developed as an extension to our bespoke professional services and education consultancy. I'm just going to let people in as they come through. But at Windsor Prep Careers, we found that even our most gifted and talented students struggled with maximizing their potential in the workplace. So as part of our mission to create and empower future global stewards, we set up the Alternative Careers webinar series, of which this is the first. So the seeds to alternative careers, and specifically alternative careers for pharmacy graduates, were sown many years ago when my sister Noor, who was in her second year of pharmacy at KCL, firmly decided that pharmacy was not a path she wished to pursue professionally. She preferred rather a corporate role in the financial services sector. She is here with us today, so she will share her own story. But suffice it to note at this stage that her path demonstrates an admirable tenacity to succeed and to use her high potential ability and academic giftedness in a more suitable career, despite a lot of pressure from the family. So she's not alone. I'm sure many of you are joining us here today because you either have experienced something similar or are having similar doubts. But as well, we have 4 other panelists, one is joining probably later, who are highly successful professionals with MPharm or Doctor of Pharmacy degrees, and who have so very, very kindly agreed to join us today to help support you think about and plan for the next stages of your pharmacy or your career journey. Just as a little note, there is going to be a recording which will be posted on our YouTube and LinkedIn channel. So if you feel that you cannot stay for the full hour, please do leave your question in the comments box and we'll try to address it later on. So I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. So I think we should get started now. If we have one more, if we have anyone a little bit late. No, I don't think so. So if we can get started with Chirag, with you, if you don't mind. Do you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Sure, thanks very much, Dr. Siva. Hi guys, I'm Chirag Pandya, first and foremost a pharmacist, or still a practicing pharmacist. So I went to the University of Reading from 2012 to 2016, after which I did my pre-reg with Boots, qualified as a community pharmacist, and then abruptly left and went into consulting at Strategy and at PwC. I was there for just over 3 years, had a secondment out in Chennai, after which I then decided to pursue contracting consulting, so I did that for a year. And I've now joined the NHS as a senior program manager just over a year, and really enjoying the role, but very much nothing to do with pharmacy other than the odd locum shift on the weekend. Thank you.
Amazing. Kai, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Kai Alexander. I went to the internships and now currently working for a strategic consultancy firm, CCD Partners, where I'm under the Healthcare and Life Science Division as a M&A analyst.
Congratulations. Yes, if you see Kai's LinkedIn page, anyone watching us by LinkedIn, you'll see he did so many internships, and that tenacity is really what we're going for here. So thank you so much, Kai. Welcome. who wants to go for Kwaku is going to be a little bit late, but Nazifa, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Nazifa and I went to UCL to do my M.Pharm from 2017 to 2021, and once I realised pharmacy wasn't sort of the route that I was going to take, I did some internship, one at a private equity firm and then another at an investment bank. Coincidentally, Kai was at the same investment bank for the internship. And then I got a grad offer from Rothschild as an investment banking analyst in the healthcare division.
Well done. So do you know each other? Introducing yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Noor. I did my M.Pharm at KCL, and then I did my pre-reg at a community pharmacy in Westbourne Grove, but I didn't actually end up doing my pre-reg exam because at the time it was during COVID, so they had cancelled the exam, and by the time they actually started doing the exams, I had already started a master's at UCL in management and finance, so I knew then that I just did not want to do pharmacy ever, so I never ended up doing my pre-reg exam. And I'm currently at RSM in an audit role, and I'm currently also studying towards my ACA qualification. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
She's my muse here, so thank you, muse. And then lastly, Tybalt, Dr. Tybalt, are you with us?
Yes. I'm struggling to put my camera on actually. So that's why you don't see me. Hopefully by the end of the call it will be on. There are some security settings that I can't deactivate. So
that's absolutely fine.
Good evening. Sorry?
That's fine. We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. So my name is Thibaut Vautier. I'm a pharmacist by education. Started my career in strategy consulting with Strategy and then EY Parthenon, and more recently Oliver Wyman, starting in France, then worked also in Germany, in the Middle East, and now based in Switzerland. That's me in a nutshell. Happy to further elaborate following subsequent questions.
So Tybalt Vautier is actually a doctor of pharmacy, and I think that is that the career path that you take in France? It's not an M.Pharm like in the UK.
Correct, it's different, yeah.
Yes, it's slightly different. So we have such a range of experiences, and it would be useful, I think, if we started with a futurag. What are the useful skills? You said you're a proud pharmacist. What makes you so proud? What are the skills that a pharmacy degree equips you with?
First and foremost, I think coming out with a master's is something that is very much overlooked. So most university qualifications out there at the moment are proceeding with a bachelor's, and just by the sheer fact that pharmacists qualifying in the UK come out with a master's, we're already an educational qualification higher than a bachelor's, and just one under a doctorate. So that, I think, is first and foremost. There's a lot to say for that. Critical thinking is, I think, one of the other strongest suits of pharmacy, and sets you up very well for other career paths if pharmacy isn't for you. So quite a few of us on the call have gone into banking or strategy consulting, because it is a critical thinking career path. Finally, being able to work in a team and serving customers, patients, or clients is a mutual factor that pharmacy shares, again, with so many different career paths. Working either with a team to lead them, to coach them and mentor them, as well as having an end patient or a client to deal with, looking after their milestones and ensuring that we're doing the very best for them is fundamentally at the heart of pharmacy and at some of the other career paths that we've chosen.
Amazing, absolutely. I think the empathy is also so important, and is something that a lot of corporate institutions are looking to skill their workforce, and being able to work as part of a team and empathize with people really, I think, wheels the cogs in the bigger machine. Kai, what about you? What other skills do you think a pharmacy degree equips one with? And I think it's so important to know exactly, to be very, very conscious, because if you don't know and if you don't value what you are studying, then you're not really able to sell yourself when you come to either continue in the pharmacy profession or to move elsewhere. So is there anything else you want to touch on in that respect?
Absolutely. I think kind of one that springs to mind is the OSCE exams, which I'm pretty sure everyone does. I think it's a great format for people to be able to assess a short piece of information in a time frame where it's kind of very important you get the things right, and being able to convey yourself in a way that not only are you precise and clear, but you can kind of instill confidence within a team environment, the patient, all these kind of things. Communication is obviously so key, and being able to convey that in such a way, it can kind of transcend into many different career paths anyway, so not just banking or anything like that. So I definitely say that's an additional skill that is very important to learn.
Yes, we've got Kweku has joined us. Kweku, can you hear us? Maybe not yet.
I can, but unfortunately, it's, as you can tell, it's incredibly busy, just on the go.
That's absolutely fine. So, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I'll attempt to go somewhere quieter. Just bear with me.
Kweku is on the go, literally on the go. I believe he's in an airport at the moment, but he's still at the moment in joining us today.
Okay, I think this is a bit better. So yes, I'm Kweku. I currently work as a senior consultant at Ernst & Young with research, project management, and other general core consulting pieces of work.
Yeah, Thibault, maybe you might want to touch upon what is it about a pharmacy degree that makes consulting so almost natural in a way?
I think it's the fact that within pharmacy, the three almost main careers are quite varied. The biggest part is the fact that it revolves around people, or in most instances revolves around people, and consulting really relies upon that. It relies upon the ability to adapt and work with people with varying backgrounds and to ultimately help them to achieve whatever outcome. So in health, it's of course to achieve better health. In consulting, it could be to make things more efficient. That's the same with driving or being able to quickly understand, gather information, critically appraise the information that you have in front of you, and then problem solve. So those are the core tenets that directly reflect what is required in a role in consulting. But in short, I would say it's the focus on the people.
Absolutely, absolutely. We all know that you've all moved away from the traditional pharmacy role. Nobody here is in a hospital pharmacy or a community pharmacy setting. Thibault, what do you think are the natural or the telltale signs that this becoming a pharmacist is simply not for me?
Sorry, the line was a bit breaking. Can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely. What are the signs that possibly becoming a pharmacist is not for a candidate, that they should be looking elsewhere?
Yeah. Very clear, yeah. Look, I can tell you about my experience, and maybe some candidates or some pharmacists. I don't exactly know if the audience is rather like high school students or already students in pharmacy, but in my case, in France, I understand that we are all coming from different background and different countries, but in France you have mandatory internships in community pharmacies before you get granted with and you obtain your diploma. These are in second, third and fourth years, and these are mandatory, lasting between 1 to 4 months. And while doing these internships, I realized that it was just not for me. I didn't find, and I don't judge at all. It's a bit difficult to say what I didn't like. I don't want to hurt anyone by saying that, but I was finding it a little bit, how can I say it in a positive way, lacking a bit of excitation and speed and stimulation. Yeah, in France, physicians tend to make jokes about pharmacists, and they say that they are like, just selling, like they are just selling drugs, like you would be selling like bread or cakes in a bakery or so. And I was finding a little bit this, okay, very exciting to have this proximity with the patients, to have this discussions, almost like a social aspect when you think of all the old people coming to discuss with you and asking, for some kind of help, etc. But also lacking this intellectual stimulation. I was finding the job to be to have too much routine, and that's why I excluded the path of community pharmacy to then rather follow the track of industrial pharmacy, and then I attended the business school, and then I discovered consulting. So this was a sequential, I would say, logic to reach a job in consulting. But in a nutshell, I would say lack of intellectual stimulation and excitation on a day-to-day basis.
That's quite interesting. Nazifa, did you realize during because in the UK we have a very similar system. There is what we call what used to be called the pre-regi or pre-registration year. It's recently been changed to foundation year placement. But Nazifa, did you experience something similar to Thibault, where during your placement year or placement period you felt that the tasks were slightly repetitive and maybe dispensing really medication was not for you? Is that when you found out that you wanted to move into the corporate sector?
So it was kind of similar in the terms that it was like I did 3 months at a Boots pharmacy, and I was like dispensing and talking to patients, and it was interesting. So I had a hospital placement as well. So like I can't say I didn't try the different sort of parts there are to pharmacy, but I think in a way it was quite similar in the fact that I missed sort of like the intellectual aspect of like problem solving and being able to have a project to work on. Like it was sort of great talking to patients, but at the same time I wanted something that I could see like a more tangible outcome for. And I think I liked the fact that I'd done some internships in other places, and those sort of work environments suited me better. I think clinics were fun and all, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I was being pushed to like my potential. So it was sort of like a way for me to take this as a sign and say, okay, maybe I should try something else. But I do like the fact. I do like healthcare, I do love healthcare, and I think it's really interesting. That's why I wanted to keep that sort of within my within my career, and that's why I sort of aim to go for a more healthcare-centered route.
Right. So you did try, you were exploring, but Noor, I know in your case, from first-hand experience, being my younger sister, that you didn't even wait to get to your foundation year to realize that this wasn't for you. What was it about? Because you were only in your second year.
I mean, I can't like pinpoint one specific thing that I just didn't like. I like when I first went into pharmacy, it was obviously I feel like it was something that I felt like I had to do because my parents I felt like there was a lot of pressure doing pharmacy. I knew I wanted to do something something like in the science like field, but I didn't know exactly what it was. I knew I didn't want to do medicine, and so my family put a lot of pressure on me to do pharmacy, even though I didn't really know like what it entailed. And so when I first went into pharmacy and I started doing a bit of work experience, the classic like thing that people say about pharmacists being like, shopkeepers, I felt like it kind of was just seeing like the actual work that we do. We don't have a lot of like responsibility, especially in the UK. I know now that you can become like independent prescribers and they're giving pharmacists a lot more responsibilities, but I still felt like in the end, like doctors hold more of like patient interactions. And even like when I started working like in the pharmacy during my work experience, and I would see the way that pharmacists would interact with their patients, and especially in community, because that's like solely where I was like based. I remember like a lot of the times like pharmacists would be like, oh, so do you want us, like during the consultation, do you want me to talk about side effects or anything? And patients are always like, oh, don't worry, I've already spoken to my doctor about this. So like, I don't think they had a lot of like respect in terms of that. Again, I'm not putting anyone down. I think pharmacy is an amazing career if that's what you want to do. But I felt like this webinar is like trying to educate people that even if you're currently, studying towards your MPharm degree, you don't have to stop and do something else. There are so many different opportunities and graduate roles, and a lot of these graduate roles, I didn't know at the time, but you actually don't even need to have a specific degree, like for example, finance or economics or anything business related. You can they accept people from a lot of different backgrounds. But yeah, again, like everyone said, I felt like pharmacy wasn't very challenging. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I decided to change career path. And as well, again, another thing, I felt like with pharmacy, again, I didn't have a lot of experience, as I said, because I only did my pre-reg. I never actually ended up working, but I feel like there's not a lot of career progression. Whereas when I in my field, I know like where you can go. Like it's just like that's it, you're a pharmacist. I mean, there's nothing else. Superintendent pharmacist, or you open up your own pharmacy. I'm talking about specifically community pharmacy. Whereas my field, you're an associate, then you can become an assistant manager, director, partner. You can move between fields. You can go from audit to corporate finance, M&A, forensics. Like there's so many different opportunities where I felt like with pharmacy. Yeah, that's my reason.
Kwaku, because you've moved away and you're working for EY. What does someone have to do to move away? How do they actually start getting into thinking about these other opportunities?
So I think the most important bit is to think about how you communicate what you've done. I think as I sort of went through earlier, I was able to think about what aligns with what the company you're seeking to apply for wants, and a key element of that is simply being able to communicate. Sometimes it's important to have someone to help you realize how something might be similar. If someone in an interview asks you a question about when you've, in a corporate setting, asks you a question about when you've had to work under pressure or under time pressures, often people feel from a pharmacy background that they don't have an example because the person asking them is from a corporate setting. But in that instance, talking about when you've been on the walk, talking about when you've had 5 patients on the shop floor and a lack of staff is a perfectly good example. What is important is being able to really communicate what is important is how you communicate how you communicate in a way that they understand, so in their language. And a large part of that can be simply from looking at the organization's websites. Some people use the word adapt, some people use the word flexible. Looking at their website would enable you to see that. For example, at EY, we talk about building a better working world. In the NHS, they talk about person-centered care. In a sense, they are arguably the same thing, but taking that extra step to understand the organization, learn how to communicate in the way that they communicate is really critical to ensure, I would say, it's communication, and to a certain extent, taking that extra step to research, really, and actually just seeking someone that's in that organizational industry that can guide you, or simply say, oh, you said this word, is this what you mean? We call that an engagement as opposed to a project. That's what I would say.
Yes. Is that what you did, Kai, when you did all your internships? Because your internships were, if you just remind us, HSBC, I remember, and there were a couple of others.
Yes.
You've got a long string there.
I did HSBC, I did Deloitte, and then I also did a kind of an online JP Morgan internship as well during my pre-reg. So I was kind of balancing both worlds.
Did you just go in? Did you just dive in? Is that what happened?
Sorry, it cracked out. Do you mind repeating that?
Yeah, sure. Did you just dive in? Did you just go for it? I mean, what is it that made you make? I mean, how did you make that jump there? Did you just simply apply? or did you go to a careers event, or did you meet people who were in these institutions? What was it that happened that made you apply for these internships?
I mean, I think I was in a bit of an opposition. My university didn't really my course really wasn't really allowing scope outside to kind of look elsewhere. So I was very honed in on just pharmacy. So I very much had to just research crazy amounts, just understanding the financial sector, what are the companies that are there, because, my knowledge was very minimal at the start. But I think once you kind of do a bit of background research, you can kind of just look at where the companies are, their position, what you find interesting, and then apply for those selectively. I think what I did best was I just leveraged what I knew, understand that I didn't know everything, and I explained that throughout my interviews and assessment centres. And that's what actually got me my HSBC one. I was able to explain, my enthusiasm, but my ability to learn, because that's what ultimately a lot of these companies look for, is your adaptability. I think one thing that I didn't do, which I think played a bit detriment, but I think is good advice, is probably in all these bright network type companies where they can allow you to kind of have a bit of an easy access to these internships, as I think that kind of plays a lot of experience into you kind of progressing, getting a full-time offer, or just understanding if this is actually for you. Just a lot of independent research, and I would say a lot of kind of LinkedIn requests, wanting to connect with people, wanting to see what do they do, who they are, could they spend 10 minutes with me and have a quick conversation, and let's just go from there. And when you kind of develop all these relationships with all these people, naturally they want to help you move forward, or they just want to kind of see how you're getting on, and then they can just offer you advice as and when. So I think, just hit all areas and something will land.
Yeah, Chirag, is that what you had a very different approach, because you actually you still work within the healthcare or the health sector, right? And you're at the NHS again. So is there a linear progression? Are you either in or out, or is your degree so flexible that you're able to move out a little bit, go into consulting, then come back in another shape?
So I qualified as a pharmacist and still partake in locum pharmacy shifts on weekends from time to time, just purely to keep my hand in it as a GPHC accredited pharmacist. But it can be circular and it can be cyclical if you'd like it to be. So you've got the core qualities, and as some of the other attendees were saying, it's really about communicating the skill set that you're garnering through pharmacy into some of the other career paths you'd like to focus in on. And by creating those synergies, it's important, and you're able to communicate that across to a wealth of different career paths. So the role that I'm currently doing at the NHS as a senior program manager is more of a financial management role. So I look after budgets across 4 NHS departments and 3 NHS hospitals, so leading a team of about 70. And so it's more around people management, time management, budgetary responsibilities, and ensuring that the hospital is working as efficiently as it can be. But it absolutely can be cyclical. So you can dip in and out depending on your appetite to work within a pharmacy setting or not.
Yes, I mean, but your experience is quite different, isn't it? Because you've slowly moved away. Yours is almost like an organic progression, right? Is that what you suggest students do, since they've already got the pharmacy degree? Do you suggest that they keep using the skills and knowledge that they've gotten from their degree, might as well? Or would you suggest that they just explore? I mean, what would your advice be?
I would say it depends on each personal circumstance and the reason why they've gone into the pharmacy and the reason why they'd like to exit pharmacy. So for me, it's always been around creating an entrepreneurial spin around pharmacy. So I've always wanted to have my own business, and that centered predominantly around pharmacy and pharma initially. So I looked at community pharmacies, I looked at warehousing, I looked at pharmacy-related businesses such as care homes. However, they just didn't work or didn't align for me. And so I think by ensuring that the skill set that you're able to garner from pharmacy and aligning that to the career path you would like to take, and ensuring that whatever it to go into, it should be a steadwise fashion that you're completely adding to the CV and adding to the armory and the wealth of knowledge you'll be taking forward. So mine was more of an organic transition, but it absolutely was aided by every previous step that I was taking.
I think that's so important that students are aware of that it's not just a one-way direction, that you can always come back and make U-turns. Thibault, you come from a French background. Are you involved in hiring at all? I think you're one of the more experienced speakers here. Thibault, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I am, yes.
Yes. Do you have a certain inclination to hire pharmacy graduates when you see a CV with an M.Pharm or a Doctor of Pharmacy? Does it mean anything to you?
I have not hired any. I have not seen any applying or much in the past years. And yes, I would be most likely, I would have this kind of, I would say, intellectual connection with a candidate that is a pharmacist by education, but then I would be judging the person against their own skills. So it would not really make a big, it would be a nice icebreaker, I would say. Yeah, but it would not guarantee a job.
Yeah, of course, it's always about, their suitability for a particular role, right? It's matching candidate to role and to organization as well. Absolutely. So I think, aside from Thibault yourself, maybe Nazifa, you can answer this one, or you can start with answering this question. In the UK, we all know that you need to, as well as having your Master of Pharmacy degree, in order to become a qualified pharmacist, you also have to do your pre-registration or your foundation year, this is called now. What are your thoughts around continuing and getting that GPHC qualification? Do you think it's worth it if someone in, say, their second, third, or even fourth year are having doubts? Do you think they should just go for it and just, bite their tongue and continue pursuing that last push, or do you think they should just drop it?
I didn't do my pre-reg training. For me, I knew off the bat that I didn't want to do my pre-reg, and I knew that pharmacy wasn't for me. And it is really daunting, don't get me wrong, making that decision, because you do 4 years of a degree and you work towards a single thing. Everyone works towards that GPHC registration, and it's a great safety net to have. So if anyone is unsure, I would say just get it if you're unsure, because it's always nice to have that safety net for you to just go back to. But if you know what you want, then it's trying to get into a specific industry is a lot easier doing through a grad program or through an entry level role. So would definitely recommend, if you know what you're doing, then try and go for an entry level role. If not, try and do your pre-reg, but on the side, I think what a lot of people do is, once you have that safety net, you start to not become lazy, but you kind of lose the motivation. You're I'm comfortable now, I'm getting paid well, I don't want to get a decrease in salary. So you start losing that motivation, and you don't want to take that plunge, and you don't want to take that risk. So I would say just keep that in the back of your mind if you do your pre-reg, that if you have other plans in mind, don't let that go. Because I do know a lot of people that have said to me I wish I could have done something else after pre-reg, but they're just so comfortable with where they are right now that they don't want to make any other changes. So just like a word of caution.
Yeah, Noor, do you regret not doing your pre-reg year?
I mean, when like I said, initially I actually did do the pre-reg year, but I couldn't do the exam because of COVID. So initially I did want to sit the exam, I did revise for it, but unfortunately I couldn't do it because, like I said, they cancelled it. And then once they opened the exam up for students, I was halfway through my other masters, which that's just another story. So I could not tackle doing a master's in something that was completely new to me, like management and finance, very, very new to me, and it was already tricky. So having to like revise for that again, like, so I think my story is a little bit different. I initially did want to do, because like Nazifa said, I did my 4 years, and so like not having to do the like pre-reg exam, I felt like, oh, I wasted like 4 years of my life. Obviously I did, and I still ended up having a very respectful degree and from a really good uni, and I get to put that on my CV, whatever. But at the end of the day, I would have still liked to do the exam just to, you know, have something to fall back on. But right now, probably don't regret it, don't really think about it often, because I've completely moved past that. It's something that I don't think I'd ever want to go into. I would never want to do community pharmacy. But again, like Trag said, like he does locums on weekends. So I think it's something that you could do like while you're doing something else. You can always fall back on, or you can, you know, do it part-time. So I think it's a good qualification to have. But then again, I'm doing a completely different qualification now. So I can't be doing the exam if I'm doing my ACA.
Yeah, and you said you doing your master's in finance at UCL is just another story, but I don't think that is just another story. I think it's really important that students, I mean, in your case, I think you simply didn't know how to get into corporate, so you thought that maybe having a master's in finance was the way forward and to give you a competitive advantage. I think any of you could possibly answer this one. We live in a very competitive world, right? And out of, let's say, 1,000 applicants, say maybe 10% go through for the first interview, and that slowly declines until they end up with just a handful of candidates who an organization actually ends up hiring. What do students need to do to keep ahead of the competition? Because in corporate roles especially, a lot of the applicants come with their economics degree or finance degree or accounting degree. So what is it? How can students with MPharm or Doctor of Pharmacy degrees, if we're speaking to some of our European counterparts, how can they put their best foot forward in the corporate world when they're going for the interviews or making their applications when faced with such fierce competition? I'll leave it up to you, whoever wants to answer that one.
I think for me, and one of the reasons why I did the degree was because I felt like I was up against a lot of people who did come from, you know, the more relevant degrees, like, you know, business, economics, finance, accounting. And what I realized, the people that actually do go through that normal route, their universities, like, they make them do all these, they teach them about all these internships that they do in their first year or their second year. And obviously when you're doing your MPharm, you don't really do like internships in investment banking at Goldman Sachs. Like, it's just not a thing. Like, you're in pharmacy, you probably do work experience in community. So I felt like I was up against a lot of people that did have that, and I didn't. So I, stupidly enough, went and did a master's at UCL and literally had to pay 31K. Still regret, but I don't think you have to do that. I just did that. But a lot of these graduate roles, they do, like I said in the beginning, they accept people from, like, they even have it on their website, like, we accept people from various different degrees. And obviously a Master of Pharmacy is an amazing one, so they won't overlook that. But then again, I think maybe another thing that I felt helped me when I did my master's actually of finance was everyone else that was like my friends that were also doing it at the same time, that I got to know while I was doing my master's were people that had come from that background. So they taught me a lot, like LinkedIn. Like, I never even used to have LinkedIn when I was doing my MPharm, but I opened up my own LinkedIn. I started connecting with a few people. I started messaging people that were applying for the same roles, asking them like to help, like what were the questions, because it's something very new to me. Like, I never did these interviews ever. When I was at King's, my first pre-reg, it was through OSCE. It wasn't really like an interview. So it was something very new to me. Yeah. So again, like, probably just a word of advice, like connect with people, network, understand how the system works, like the interview, the questions they ask, if you're going into consultancy, case studies. Yeah.
Thank you, Noor. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think Dr. Siva, just to add on what Noor was saying, also, you're a pharmacy student and, you've done A-levels or you've done some sort of further enhanced education. So have the confidence to double down in yourself. You've had analytical subject exposure, you've had math, sciences, some of you have done biology, chemistry, physics, or even a combination of all three, as well as some of the other subjects, to give you that wider peripheral way of thinking. Double down on yourself and have the confidence to be able to go out there and try. The least you can do is try, and as some of the other guys are saying, reach out to people, don't be afraid to put your right foot forward and go out, go and understand and learn what it is that companies want, go and understand what it is that you would like from a career path, and try and find those skill sets to build on.
Absolutely. It's about finding your way, right? It's about meeting, again, as I said earlier in the introduction, is matching your potential with a particular role that will allow you to flourish and thrive and create change, because ultimately that is what we are here for. We are here to create change and to make the world a better place, even if in a very, very small way. So we don't want any wasted talent at any point. But I think that a very, very important thing that I think, Nazifa, you mentioned, is the difference between an experienced hire, somebody who has stayed in the farm as a pharmacist for, say, 5 or 6 years, versus a fresh graduate who is able to apply to all of these graduate roles in the corporate world. Nazifa, maybe you, or even Tybalt, you, if you wanted to add to this, Kai or Kweku, any one of you, what is the difference in application strategy? I think what we've been speaking about so far, pharmacy graduates, you've freshly graduated, you're yet to graduate, and you're thinking about what are the next steps. What about, and I do know that we've got a couple of viewers who are joining us live now, who are experienced pharmacists, who have been pharmacists for 5 or 6 years and know nothing else. What would their strategy be? Because it would be very, very different.
I can sort of start off. So my application process was a bit, so I obviously didn't do my pre-reg. So I started off by applying to internships, and what you really need to emphasize in your internship is like the transferable skills that your degree can give you. So like problem solving, or being able to like critically think, or looking at information and drawing conclusions from them. And I think like we don't realize, but like pharmacy has a lot of transferable skills that people don't always highlight. And one thing I do sort of want to say is that you don't always have to become the sort of profession that your degree sort of dictates that you should be. Like a lot of people do biochemistry, but they don't all become biochemists, right? So like, you have to sort of think of it in a sort of more creative way. And I think the best way to do like applying to like corporate roles would be, one, to sort of like get internships. And I know it's like really difficult getting internships, but the best way to do it is like try and look for like outreach programs, or like like SEO or the Bright Network, and try and put yourself out there as much as possible. And then there are like very specific ways that you're meant to like structure your CV, or like how you're meant to sort of answer questions in the application process, or how you do your interviews. And there's loads of resources online that you can use those like examples that they give you to structure your CV like that. For example, finance, which is like the one that I know most about, is like a recruiter will look at your CV for maximum like 30 seconds before they move on to the next one, just because of the number of applications that they get. So if it's not clear on your CV, like what you've done and like what are your skills and what are your like qualifications, then it's just like they're just going to throw it away and move on to the next one. So try and be sort of very clear and concise in what you're trying to say. There's like the STAR method. There's loads of different resources out there that you can use to be able to make sure you like get the application process right. And second is like, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but like the tests, like make sure you do loads and loads of tests, because first time around I didn't practice any of those tests, and those are very important, and there's a very specific way you're meant to go about them. So if you practice them, you will like pass, and that's what gets you to like the main bit of the process, which is the interviews, which I think pharmacy students do really well in.
Yes, now those tests that Nazif is mentioning are the psychometric tests, and they are in primarily, I believe, maths and English. And you also have situational judgment component as well, which is, I believe, very, very similar to the GPHC's situational judgment test section as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, there are lots of resources at Windsor Prep Careers. We also do bespoke one-to-one training for those psychometric tests. So if that's something that any of our viewers are interested in, please do reach out to us on any of our channels, and we'll do our best to support you in that regards. But I don't think, I'm not quite sure if we really hit the mark on how to make the shift if you're an experienced hire with, like, say, 6 or 7 years experience. Kai, maybe you might want to develop on this one, because maybe Tabol, maybe you, if you want to develop, like, how is someone who's just been in a small, very, very small community pharmacy where they don't administer any vaccinations or don't do any kind of health plans or anything, wants to move away and finds that their job has become a little bit redundant or maybe mundane? Is internship still applicable? Does it still carry the same weight?
To be honest, I don't know what would be the best way. I know, if I speak for France, I know in the UK it's very different. You can, for instance, study geography or history and end up in investment banking or in consulting, which is impossible in France. So there are some differences that I cannot judge. But if we would be in France, I would say that the best way, most likely, would be to do an MBA, to then be able to really shift gears with a proper stamp on your CV. I believe it would be the best way, but it costs a lot of money. You need to be really sure if it's worth it. Your salary most likely will increase afterwards, so it's an investment that would need to be recouped. Yeah, so you can see it as just investment. Salary will increase over time, so you will get your money back. I believe without an MBA it could be quite challenging, but I'm sure there are cases around. And again, looking on LinkedIn, trying to find people who did the same things in the past, reaching out to them and asking them how they did it is always a good benchmark, and can also give new ideas that we might not think of. Yeah.
Absolutely, nothing beats networking, I believe. And we are approaching the end of our session, so we've got the Q&A now. There are a couple of questions here that some students or some of our viewers have posted. So the first one we have here: did your pharmacy degree have a hand in helping you attain your current career, and if so, how? Kai, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, it did, as much as I wasn't a fan of it, wanting to move away from pharmacy. But yes, it did. I think, having the experience of studying for 4 years a healthcare career and getting yourself familiar with the terminology, the understanding of the mechanisms, all these type of things, isn't necessarily had, especially if you go into banking, consultancy, all these type of things. So you naturally pick up being the technical person within a team, especially in my scenario, working in the healthcare and life science division, everyone else had a finance kind of background. So whenever we do meet clients, or whenever we have a kind of a case that's come in on a slide deck or anything, I'm usually the guy that becomes the translator and helps to kind of distinguish that and simplify it so that everyone else can understand as well. And that's also a key trait you can have using the pharmacy degree, and you now naturally become a leader within your team. And that is something that not many people actually think about when they want to make that transition. A lot of people think, different career, I'm going to be at the bottom, but actually you're not. You're already an expert despite being so young. And now you're just going to learn the finance on top of that. So it's very much having what you know, leverage it, and also just be confident of what you know. You know, everything is learned, everything can be taught. And if you come with the mindset of that and all have the confidence that what you know is what you know, then you can very much leverage it very easily in any scenario.
Absolutely, yeah. Confidence unlocks so many, was the key to so many doors. Second question we have here, can you apply to graduate schemes during pre-reg year or foundation year? I think the UK pharmacy graduates could answer that one. Can you apply? I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. It's quite a simple one. Just a question for Noor, because I feel I'm in the same boat as you were as an MPharm student. What advice do you have if unsure what to exactly do with their pharmacy degree? Do you suggest everyone goes out and invest in another master's degree?
No, I mean, like, if you want to, you can. I mean, like, it gave me a solid foundation about on, like, you know, business functions, and it did help me a lot with some of the exams that I'm doing now, so I'm thankful for that. And obviously, again, it's something that looks good on my CV, so I mean, as much as I you know, regret it sometimes, because when I first went into my field now, and I speak to a lot of the graduates, and I'm like, oh, so like, what did you guys do? And everyone, there are people that have done, like, you know, like English lit or have no maths background, and so I mean, I genuinely feel like you don't need to do it, but if you want to, you obviously, it's still good to on your CV. But if I knew, I wish I would have just applied for internships. Don't know why I didn't do my research back then, but yeah, I think just like what Nazifa said, like doing internships, practicing the assessment centres, practice makes perfect. Obviously, the first time I applied for them, did horribly, but you do learn because they are quite repetitive and or similar in like in the degree, some of the graduate roles, the assessment centres are quite similar, like you said, like the situational judgment tests, the maths exams, but yeah, and also like researching what graduate roles you do want, because there are a lot out there in finance. So like mine, audit, you can go into investment banking, you can go into corporate finance, you even have to do finance roles, you can even do like tech roles. So I have a friend also who did nothing finance related and all tech related. She didn't even do data analytics or anything, and she's working at Mazars as a cybersecurity consultant. So there are a lot of opportunities if you're a graduate to apply to these roles, because they genuinely accept anyone. It's just about the way. Again, I feel like as well, not when you get to the interview stages, they want to be able to see if they can work with you, because a lot of the times towards the end, you actually end up getting interviewed by the manager or a partner, and they want to be able to see that, you know, they like you, they like your personality. It's not just about the skills, about the way you communicate and the way you, like, you know, you show that, you know, you're like a nice person. It doesn't, like, when I first did it as well, I thought it was going to be very technical. You're going to really need to understand what, you know, audit's about, or because I applied to corporate finance roles. They know you not anything about the role. I mean, research the role, of course, but they know you don't understand the technicalities behind it because you're just a graduate. But they want to be able to see that, you know, you're a nice person, you're nice to work with, they like you. It's all about your personality again and the way that you speak. But yeah, I don't know if that helped.
Hopefully. So Nazifa, there is one question for you. Where did you do your internships?
I didn't quite catch that.
Where did you do your internships?
Yeah, so I did my internship at a private equity firm at Apex. I was in the healthcare fund, and then my internship actually got extended. So then I worked in the impact fund for a bit, which is like the new fund where they sort of invest more in like sort of more UN SDG related goals. And then after that, I did an internship, an off cycle at HSBC, where I was in the TMT team. And then straight after that, I started at Rothschild.
Incredible, well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
So when it comes to interviews, how do you compete with candidates who have financial backgrounds? Thibault, how do you do in interviews?
I've done a lot of interviews in the past. I think the best way to go about an interview is one, there's a lot of questions online for those different companies, especially like the big banks. So I think it's like Glassdoor or something, but like you can search up like assessment center questions and they'll come up with like the ones from the previous year. So like you can like sort of prep beforehand for some of them. And then on top of that, it's always good to know like the basics of finance. Like, you know, they might ask you like, what is EBITDA, or like what are the 3 financial statements, or, you know, give me some examples of how you would value a company. And there's all very basic ones that you can find answers online for, and you just need to memorize that. When it comes to like motivational or situational, even if you don't get the answer right, just show your like thinking and your way of thinking. So like say they give you like a problem to solve, just even if you don't get to an answer at all, just be like, okay, first I'd start off like this, and then I'd go about it this way. And the reason I'd go about it this way is because of this. So like try and give reasons for every single thing that you do, and try and make it a conversation as well. That's probably the last thing I'd say, but like it's always like half the time I'd spend like, you know, having a conversation with them, like, yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, what do you do on the weekend? And like always like,
yeah, charisma is really what it is. So the more of it, the more charismatic pills you swallow, the higher the chances are of scoring in an interview. But I think Thibault, since you are our only non-UK panelist, we have a question here which probably would be most suitable for you. Someone's writing here, Myra, I'm interested to work outside of the UK, but I'm not really sure the process, and I don't know where and what to research as a startup. What advice would you give?
Sorry, what kind of industry she would like? You heard startup, yeah?
Well, there is really no, she hasn't stated. So just starting outside of the UK, but with a pharmacy degree. I think the focus is on location with a pharmacy degree.
I think it's impossible to answer the question if it's not a bit more narrowed down, you know, because
but how do you narrow down?
Big investment bank or consulting firm, the process would be the same roughly across the world, right? Because the process is extremely standardized. So no matter where you apply, you will most likely have very similar questions, fit questions in the interview, a quant testing on your skills, case studies, etc., etc. In most of the countries in Europe and beyond. So really depends, I think, what kind of specific, I would say, type of company. Yeah? Do you apply for a big GSK or Sanofi in the industry? Do you apply for a startup? I mean, and then now with the Brexit and the kind of visa issues, I don't really know how it works. So I would recommend to get close to the maybe HR immigration office and understand how that all works, because I'm not a HR specialist, so I don't want to answer something wrong here.
Absolutely, but I think what you touched upon earlier was really useful. I mean, there are roles and specific talent is required to carry out that role, and no matter where in the world it is, you still need to demonstrate a particular competency, because no organization wants to be hiring and then seeing that staff or talent is leaving because they are bored or overworked or it's just simply not a right fit. So I'm going to leave it with that. I know there are some other questions which we haven't answered, but we will be posting answers to all of those questions on our Instagram and LinkedIn pages, so please make sure that you follow our social media channels. We also will be organising one-to-one consultations with some of Windsor Prep Careers advisors. So if you do want more specific support moving out of pharmacy, please do reach out to us and we can arrange a one-to-one consultation. Otherwise, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone. Quecker, you in the airport traveling, Tybalt, you're outside of the UK and your experience has added so much flavour to everyone else's experiences, so thank you so much. Nazifa, Kai, Chirang, Noor, my muse, thank you so much. I really, really do hope that this has been a very informative session. I know that universities and even the pharmacy sector wants to keep talent within the pharmacy sector. And so sometimes it may be a little bit of a minefield to go out and explore, but hopefully we've given you enough food for thought to start thinking about what kind of things you need to be doing at this stage, whatever stage you're at, to then progress in your career and become global leaders. So thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you.